Rescuring Mme De Gaulle and family. In the early hours of the 18th of June 1940, Supermarine Walrus L2312, an amphibious aircraft, took off from Mount Batten, near Plymouth, England. It contained a crew of 3, an Australian pilot, Flight Lieutenant John Napier Bell, an Australian observer, Sergeant Charles William Harris, and a British wireless electrical mechanic, Corporal Bernard Nowell. In addition to this was a special passenger, British intelligence officer Captain Norman Hope. The crew did not know their mission, nor their destination. It was Hope's role to brief them after takeoff. At 2:55 in the morning they were airborne and making their way to the French coast. Their mission was to rescue the family of General Charles de Gaulle, who became the leader of the Free French after the occupation of France. In May, after Germany invaded France, he told his wife to take their 3 children and leave their home near Reims and go to Brittany, where passage to England would be arranged. On the 16th of June he sent her money and passports before he flew to England on the 17th of June with a few other senior French officers who had refused to surrender to Germany. Upon his arrival in London he asked Prime Minister Winston Churchill to rescue his family from Carantec, on the coast of the English Channel, where they had taken refuge with an aunt. Unfortunately, the morning of the 18th of June was very foggy, and at 4:30 that morning locals in the French village of Plymouth, about 30 kilometers southwest of Carantec, were woken by the sound of L2312 flying low. The fog was thick and it seemed that the aircraft flew back and forth a few times, as if looking for somewhere to land. At least one eyewitness account states the aircraft was on fire as it descended, which led to the belief it may have been shot at. Eventually the plane crashed after trying to land in a field. It hit a small embankment and broke in two. All 4 in the plane were killed. Their bodies were recovered and buried at the cemetery at Plowdeniel, where they remain today. As no word was heard from the aircraft after it left England and it did not return, a boat, Motor Transport 29, was sent to rescue the family on the 19th of June. A French interpreter was on board. His mission was to find the family and try to discover what happened to L2312 and its crew. When they arrived they discovered Carantec was already occupied by the Germans, so returned to England empty-handed. Luckily Madame de Gaulle and her family, who were not aware of these rescue attempts, had already left Carantec and had driven down to Brest to try and get a ferry to England. On the way there the car broke down and they missed their boat. Although this seemed unlucky at the time, this was actually fortuitous, as the ferry they should have been on was sunk by the Germans on its way to England, with all lives lost. They managed to get space on the last boat to leave Brest before the Germans occupied the area, and upon arrival in England, set up home in Hampstead, North London. Soon after the aircraft vanished, the families were sent telegrams to advise that the crew was missing. In early 1941 the 4 men were all presumed killed and their families notified. Later, French refugees arrived in England with information about the crash, which confirmed their deaths, and the families were told where their graves were believed to be located. As the country was still occupied, it was not until 1946 when this was confirmed. To this day those graves are cared for with flower, and a service on Remembrance Day by the local population and is always well attended.